Hello, everyone. Tonight we are stepping into a story that begins in a graveyard, where silence is loud and grief doesn't always come alone. The sky is gray, not stormy, but heavy, like it knows something the mourners don't. The kind of cold that isn't from the wind, but from somewhere deeper. My heels sink slightly into the soft earth as I follow the crowd of black coats and bowed heads. I'm not crying. Not yet. I've learned how to keep composed. When you've buried your husband, navigated corporate boards, and slept alone in a mansion too big for one soul, you learn how to keep your face neutral no matter what's breaking inside. But then, I hear it. Not from the front where the priest reads my son's eulogy, not from the circle of colleagues murmuring their condolences. It comes from off to the side, behind the large oak tree near the older stones. Three small voices, fragile, delicate, whispering in near unison. Bye, Daddy. I freeze. My spine stiffens. My breath catches in my throat like I've been punched without warning. I turn, instinctively, but there's no one there. Nothing but three tiny shadows darting behind the tree. At first, I think I've imagined it. Maybe grief is playing with my mind. But I know what I heard. I know what I heard. That voice, the timbre, the softness. It didn't sound like a stranger saying goodbye to a friend's father. It sounded like a daughter saying goodbye to her daddy. I don't move. I can't. My feet are planted as though the roots of that oak tree have grown under me, too. The priest's voice fades into the background. People begin to approach me with the standard words. He was so kind. Such a tragedy. You must be proud of the man he became. I nod, smile faintly, say thank you. But inside, the only words bouncing around my skull are, Bye, Daddy. 3 times. 3 girls. The reception afterward is a blur of floral arrangements, lukewarm coffee, and polished sympathy. I don't say much. I can't stop thinking about them. The little girls in black dresses. I didn't know them. And yet, they knew him. And not in passing. Who were they? That night, I sit on the edge of my bed, still in my funeral dress, shoes kicked off haphazardly on the carpet. The moonlight creeps in through the tall windows of my master suite, casting pale silver shadows on the floor. I haven't slept much in the week since Michael's accident. 43 years old, a surgeon, a quiet man, my only child, killed in an intersection by a driver who wasn't paying attention, his body thrown across the inside of the car. Dead on impact, they said. I didn't even get to say goodbye. I keep thinking about the last voicemail he left. Hey, Mom, just checking in. I know you hate long messages. Call me when you can. That was a Tuesday. He died Wednesday morning. Now it's Sunday night, and I'm haunted. Not by his death, but by what, or who, he might have left behind. 3 children? He would have told me. Wouldn't he? Michael wasn't married. Never brought anyone home. Always said he was too busy for relationships. Too tired to date. Too focused on the hospital. But could he have? I try to remember. Was there ever a time he mentioned someone special? A name I ignored? A phone call cut short? I pour myself a glass of red wine and sit by the fireplace. It's automatic now. Wealth gives you habits. Beautiful furniture, curated art, vintage rugs. None of it feels warm tonight. I stare into the fire, the flames dancing, flickering like secrets I never knew he kept. Because here's the truth, the part that makes my stomach twist with guilt. Michael and I hadn't talked, really talked, in years. Yes, there were phone calls, holiday dinners, updates about work. But the kind of intimacy we had when he was young, the mother and son closeness, that had faded slowly, like color draining from a photograph. I always blame time, distance, age, life. But now I wonder, was I simply not paying attention? I think about the 3 shadows again, about how they seem to move together like a single being, stitched by loss. I remember one of them had a braid. Another held a small white stuffed rabbit in her hand. Their eyes, though I saw them only for a second, looked just like his. And for the first time since the funeral, I feel something stirring in my chest. Not just grief, not just regret. Curiosity, dread, hope, and a question that refuses to be ignored. Who said goodbye to my son, and why didn't I know about them? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan to have some soft background music, and let's start our journey tonight. There's something haunting about silence when you're used to distractions. After the funeral, the house became too quiet. Not peacefully quiet, empty quiet. The kind where even your own footsteps feel like an intrusion. Every room echoed with absence, and every object suddenly became a memory. The leather chair Michael used to sit in during Christmas dinners. The piano he never learned to play, but insisted on keeping in the corner of the living room. The hallway where I used to yell, "Michael, hurry up, we're late!" back when I still drove him to school in my old silver Volvo. And just like that, the echoes of motherhood returned, sharper now that they had nowhere to land. My home wasn't always this large. Gerald, my late husband, and I started small. A modest condo, a decent income, and a big dream. Gerald was an engineer, meticulous, clever, gentle. I was the planner, the financial mind. Together, we built a life, brick by brick. And when Gerald passed from cancer 8 years ago, he left behind not just memories, but a well-built fortune. Investments, stocks, properties. It sounds so cold, doesn't it? But when grief visits your doorstep, sometimes numbers are the only things that stay consistent. Stocks don't cry. Property doesn't decay from sadness. The house, the accounts, the things we worked for, they were all still there. And Michael, he kept going too. He dove into his medical career with a kind of relentless discipline. Never married, never had kids, or so I believed. We were two people, orbiting the same pain, never quite touching it at the same time. Every time I tried to get closer, he'd deflect. "Work's been crazy, Mom." "I'm fine, don't worry so much." "I'll come for Thanksgiving, okay?" I used to think it was just adulthood. People grow apart. But now, I'm not so sure. Because what if it wasn't distance? What if it was deliberate? I remember his eyes at Gerald's funeral, wet but hard. Not broken, but fortified. That was the day something changed in him. He took on the role of the strong son, the man of the house, but he never let me see inside again. He never let me shoulder his burdens. And I was so busy handling mine that I let it slide. Years passed, and the money grew. I sat on boards, donated to charities, hosted art galas, spoke at luncheons. The kind of wealthy widow life that earns polite nods and admiration from acquaintances who only ever saw the pearls and the smile, not the ache beneath them. I had millions. I had a beautiful house, a housekeeper, a driver, a personal financial advisor. I traveled to Paris once just because I missed croissants, but I didn't have what I wanted most: connection, family, a living piece of myself in the world. Michael was that piece. Or he had been. Until he drifted so far, I forgot what closeness felt like. After the accident, the hospital director personally called me. "He was a brilliant doctor," she said. "Everyone admired him." But the funeral? No personal friends, no partner, just colleagues and distant relatives. There were no photos of children in his office, no wedding ring, no diary, no hint of a secret family life. But those girls, those 3 small shadows, they had to mean something. I don't sleep that night. Instead, I wander the halls of my house, touching framed photographs like they're relics from a past life. There's one of Michael, age 7, missing his front teeth, holding up a frog in the backyard. Another from his medical school graduation. He's so serious in it, his shoulders squared like a soldier. And then it hits me. All my photos of him stop at age 30. After that, I have no updates, just check-ins, holiday calls, brief messages. He stopped letting me into his life. And I let him. That realization guts me, because when a mother loses her child, it's not just the loss of who they were, but of everything she never got to know. I sink into the leather chair, the one he once said was too modern for my taste, and I stare at the ceiling like it might drop answers. Who were those girls? The next morning, I wake up early, before the sun. I dress in black again, not because I'm going to another funeral, but because it feels appropriate. I drive myself this time. No driver, no makeup, just me and my questions. When I arrive at the cemetery, the grounds are still wet with dew. The scent of fresh-cut grass and cold earth fills my nose. I walk to Michael's grave. Fresh flowers are already there. I didn't leave them. My heart skips. I look around, and I see them. 3 small girls sitting cross-legged beneath the oak tree. One is sketching something on a notebook. Another is talking softly to a stuffed rabbit. The third, the one with the braid, is staring directly at me. There is no fear in her eyes, no apology, only something I can't name. Recognition, maybe, like she's been waiting for me. I take a cautious step forward, and just as quickly as they appeared, they vanish, sprinting toward a car parked on the far edge of the lot. An older woman opens the driver door, throws a startled look in my direction, and ushers them in. The car pulls away. I don't even get the license plate. I stand there, breathless. My palms are sweating. My pulse is in my throat. But now I know it wasn't my imagination. They were real. They're connected to him, and I need to find out how. I turn back to Michael's grave. The stone is smooth, recently polished. It bears only his name and the dates. No inscription, no beloved father. But maybe it should have. Maybe it will. I kneel and touch the earth beneath his name, and I whisper something I never thought I'd have to say. Who did you leave behind, Michael? And why didn't you tell me? The next few days pass in a blur. Half grief, half obsession. I stop going to luncheons. I cancel the interior design consult I had scheduled for the wine cellar. I ignore the email about renewing my seat on the hospital fundraising board. None of it matters anymore. I keep thinking about the way that little girl looked at me. Not with fear, not even with confusion. It was something deeper, familiarity. She knew who I was. But how? I return to the cemetery again. Then again the day after that. Each morning, I bring fresh flowers. At first, it's for Michael. Then, if I'm honest, it's in case they come back. They don't. Not for 3 long days. On the 4th morning, I bring a thermos of tea and a blanket. I arrive before the gates open and wait in my car just beyond the wrought iron archway. I tell myself it's ridiculous what I'm doing, that I've gone from grieving mother to amateur detective with no real leads, no names, no facts, just a gut feeling and a glimpse of 3 girls in black dresses. But I don't leave, and that's the morning I see it again. The same blue sedan, faded paint, a missing hubcap, pulling quietly into the same far edge of the cemetery lot, half hidden under a cypress tree. My heart hammers. They're here. The girls pile out of the car. The woman I saw before, older, worn, leads them across the grass. They move with routine, like they've done this before. She stands a few paces away as the girls walk to Michael's grave and sit silently in a triangle. They each take something out of their pockets. One has a small rock, polished and painted. Another sets down a folded piece of paper. The third opens a tiny music box and lets it play just 3 soft notes before she closes it again. And then one of them, Braid Girl, says softly, "Hi, Daddy." I can't move. I can barely breathe, because there's no more doubt in my mind. These aren't family friends. These aren't charity cases. These are his daughters, my granddaughters. I step out of my car slowly, the blanket falling from my lap into the floorboard. My knees shake. My shoes crunch over the gravel as I approach the edge of the trees. I don't go all the way. I stop just close enough for them to hear if I speak. But before I can say a word, the older woman notices me. Her eyes widen. She rushes forward, panicked, scooping up the girls like a mother hen gathering her chicks. "Come on," she says, urgently but softly. "Back to the car, now." The girls don't resist. But one of them, Hope, I learn later, turns her head back as they walk away and stares at me. There is sadness in her eyes, but not fear. The sedan drives off before I can say anything. I sit down on the cemetery bench and tremble. Not from the cold, from the enormity of what I've just witnessed. Michael had children. 3. And he never told me? Why? That question eats at me all afternoon. The anger creeps in slowly, infecting the grief like mold creeping up a wall. He had no right to keep them from me. No right. I was his mother. I am their grandmother. I could have helped. I could have been there. How could he do this? But as soon as the fury flares, it dims again. Because I know that boy. I know my son. He was thoughtful, private, guarded. He must have had a reason. The next morning, I call an old friend of Michael's from the hospital, Dr. Rodriguez, an oncologist I'd met briefly during the memorial. He'd said Michael worked too hard, that he practically lived at the hospital. Did my son ever mention a woman named Margaret? I ask, trying to sound casual. There's a pause on the line. Yes, he says finally. Margaret Chen. She used to be a social worker. They were close. But then she left. Michael stopped talking about her. I grip the phone tighter. Do you know where she is now? Another pause. Mrs. Patterson, if this is about what I think it's about, maybe it's better. I just need an address. I interrupt. He sighs. I'll see what I can find. Hours later, I get a text. A street name, a house number, a part of town I've never had reason to visit. Not poor, not wealthy, just ordinary, unremarkable, unlike anything my son ever lived in. That evening, I drive there. The house is small, a bungalow with peeling paint and a slanted porch. There's a cracked tricycle in the yard, a toy dinosaur resting on the railing, wind chimes tapping in the breeze. And then the front door opens. She steps out. The woman from the cemetery. She sees me immediately and freezes. I walk to the foot of the steps, heart pounding, mouth dry. You're Margaret? I ask, though I already know the answer. She doesn't nod, doesn't move, just looks at me with a kind of quiet tension, like a guard dog assessing whether to bark or bite. I'm Michael's mother. Silence, and then, I know. That confirmation cracks something open inside me. I feel my hands shake, so I clutch the railing for stability. Those girls, they're his? She swallows. Her voice is almost a whisper. Yes. 3 letters. 1 word. It changes my entire... The house smells like apples and warm laundry. It's clean, but lived in. Faint drawings are taped to the fridge with magnets shaped like animals. A worn couch with a crocheted blanket. A pair of pink sneakers near the door, one of them untied. Margaret closes the door behind me quietly. I stay near the entrance, unsure if I'm truly welcome or just being tolerated. You can sit, she says, motioning to the sofa. Her voice is cautious, not unkind, like someone used to explaining things no one wants to hear. I perch on the edge, hands folded, spine straight. She sits in the armchair across from me, knees tucked up slightly, like she's protecting herself. Then, before I can ask anything, she speaks. They're his, all 3. Faith, hope, and joy. 10 years old. Triplets. Triplets. The word thuds inside me. And you're... I'm their aunt. My sister, Emily, was their mother. She glances away, and for the first time, I notice the faint shake in her voice. She passed away. Complications after their birth. Michael. He tried. He really did. But he couldn't raise them alone. He was barely surviving. I feel my breath catch. He didn't tell me. Margaret nods slowly. He wanted to. I know he did. But he was scared. Scared of what? I snap, the anger flaring despite myself. Scared that I would love them? Help him? Be there? No, she says gently. Scared you wouldn't. The words hit harder than I expect. He said you had already buried a husband, that you were finally rebuilding your life, that it wouldn't be fair to put this burden on you. They're not a burden, I whisper. Margaret's eyes meet mine, and I see something shift. A crack in the wall she's built between us. I know, she says, but you were already distant. Michael said that after Gerald passed, something in you changed, that you stopped calling, stopped visiting. You were polite, but far away. I wince, because it's true. After Gerald died, I collapsed inward, threw myself into financial planning, foundation work, anything that didn't require emotional risk. Michael reached out, but I always found an excuse. Why didn't you call me? I ask, the question bitter on my tongue. She sighs. Because by the time I realized I couldn't raise them alone, Michael was already dying inside. He didn't want to ask for help anymore, and when he finally did start opening up again, it was too late. She stands and walks over to a low shelf beside the couch. She picks up a small wooden box and places it on the coffee table. Videos, she says. He recorded one for every birthday, for each girl, just in case. I stare at the box like it might explode. They know who you are, she continues. He told them stories, showed them pictures, but he didn't want to confuse them. He said, one day, when the time is right, they'll meet her, and she'll love them like I do. I feel tears slip down my cheek before I can stop them. My hands go to my face, hiding what I don't want Margaret to see, but she doesn't look away. I was so angry, I admit, voice muffled. I thought he shut me out. I thought he didn't trust me. He didn't trust himself, Margaret replies softly. A long silence follows, the kind that only happens when truth fills a room like heavy fog. Then, small footsteps upstairs. 3 sets, the girls. I straighten. My heart pounds. Do they know I'm here? I ask. Margaret hesitates. Number, but they will. I stand, smoothing my coat. Let me meet them. She looks at me for a long time, measuring something. They're sensitive, she says. They've been through a lot. Medical issues, school troubles. They're not like other kids. Not exactly. I don't care. She nods slowly. Then she calls up the stairs. Girls, we have a visitor. There's shuffling, giggling. A door creaks. Then 3 little faces peek around the corner. They're even smaller than I remember. The one in the middle has the braid. The one on the right clutches the rabbit. The left one wears glasses too big for her face. They look at me. I look at them. And I say, barely above a whisper, Hi, I'm your grandma. The braid girl steps forward first. Her chin is tilted upward, brave. My name's Faith. I remember, I say. I saw you at the cemetery. She nods. Then Hope steps up beside her. You brought the flowers. Yes. Then Joy, the smallest, edges forward, half hidden behind her sisters. She doesn't say anything. I kneel to their eye level. I didn't know about you, I say, but I think I've been waiting for you my whole life. Hope tilts her head. Daddy said we'd meet you one day. I blink back tears. Joy whispers something, barely audible. What was that, sweetheart? I ask. She clutches her rabbit tighter and says, Are you staying? And in that moment, surrounded by the 3 pieces of my son I never knew, I give the only answer that feels right. If you'll let me. It's strange how quickly a life can pivot. How one moment you're drifting, and the next, you're standing in a hallway of a stranger's home, meeting your own blood for the first time. Margaret makes hot cocoa. I sit at the small kitchen table, knees awkwardly bent, because it's a child-sized set. Joy sits to my right, still hugging her rabbit. Hope places 3 marshmallows into each cup with surgical precision. Faith watches me. Not suspiciously, not warmly either, just carefully. Like she's deciding if I'm real. I let them lead the pace. You don't look like Daddy, Hope says, blowing on her cocoa. I smile. No, I suppose I don't. But I did give him his crooked smile. He hated that. Faith leans in. Did you know he could draw dragons? Like, really good ones? I blink. I didn't know that. He showed us last year. It was a blue one with gold wings, Joy adds. her voice still a whisper. My heart twists. I think of all the talents I never saw. All the afternoons I could have spent seeing those dragons come to life on paper. I'd thought I knew my son. But clearly, I only knew the version he allowed me to see. He was always very serious with me, I admit. He wanted to be a doctor since he was 7, never talked about art. Faith shrugs. Maybe he was just different with us. And that hurts, but in the way that truth often does. I nod slowly, accepting it. Then Joy speaks again, softer than ever. He said you were a queen. The sentence stuns me. What? She nods. He said you were strong and pretty, and didn't need help from anyone, like a real queen. I cover my mouth, stunned by how close admiration and isolation can look to a child. Margaret returns to the kitchen, a basket of folded laundry in her arms. She glances at the clock. It's bedtime. Instantly, a chorus of groans. But Grandma just got here, Hope argues. 10 more minutes? Joy pleads. Margaret hesitates, then gives me a look, asking silently if I'm okay staying longer. I'd love to help tuck them in, I say. The girls light up. Margaret nods, and I follow them upstairs. Their bedrooms are small, lined with worn bookshelves, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceilings, and mismatched stuffed animals. Everything is lovingly cared for, even if nothing matches. Faith leads me into their room, a shared one, with 3 beds pushed against separate walls. She hands me a storybook. He used to read this to us. It's a fairy tale about a fox who gets lost in the forest and finds his way home by following the sound of his mother's heartbeat. Would you read it? She asks. My throat tightens. I nod. As I read, their bodies relax. Hope curls under her blanket. Joy's thumb goes to her mouth. Faith doesn't close her eyes, but I see her breathing soften. I finish the last page, closing the book softly. There's a pause. Then Faith whispers, Will you come again? My voice cracks. If you'll have me. Joy crawls out of bed and wraps her arms around my leg. You already smell like hugs, she says. I nearly fall apart. Downstairs, Margaret waits with a cup of lukewarm tea. Her shoulders sag, her hair messy in that way caregivers never bother fixing. I haven't heard them that calm in months, she says. They're amazing, I reply, and I'm furious I've missed this long. Margaret sits heavily on the couch. He made me promise not to tell you. He thought he was protecting you. I know, I say, but he was wrong. Or maybe I was the one who made him think that. She looks at me, surprised. I sip the tea. It's bitter. I welcome it. I wasn't present, not after Gerald died. I withdrew, focused on finances, status, distractions. Maybe he thought I couldn't love more. Margaret doesn't argue. They're sick, you know, she says after a beat. It's not deadly, but it's chronic. Some days are harder than others. Immunity issues, fatigue, specialists, and it's expensive. Her voice breaks a little at that word. Expensive. The way caregivers say it when it means skipping meals or saying no to gifts at birthdays. I want to help, I say instantly. She narrows her eyes. With what? Money. With everything. She watches me. Not with distrust, but with exhaustion. Like she's been carrying too many things for too long and doesn't know how to set them down without everything breaking. They're your family, I say quietly, and they're mine too. Margaret looks away. I don't want them getting hurt, she murmurs. They've had enough abandonment. I'm not leaving. You might. People promise that all the time. Then let me prove it. Silence. Just the ticking of a wall clock. She leans back on the couch, rubbing her temples. They need consistency, medical care, a stable life, not just visits and gifts and sweet bedtime stories. Then I'll give them all of it. Whatever I have, it's theirs. She finally looks me in the eye again. Then come back tomorrow. We have a therapy appointment at the Children's Hospital at 10. I nod. I'll be there. Bring good shoes, she adds. Joy has.
Hospitals have a particular smell. Not bad, just clinical, sterile. A mix of disinfectant and faint plastic. For most people, it's unsettling. For me, it reminds me of Michael. I park far from the front entrance, not because I have to, but because I need a moment before walking in. The hospital isn't just a place where my son used to work. It's also where I imagine he spent long hours worrying about his daughter's future, where he learned their diagnoses, where he sat in waiting rooms pretending to be brave. I walk in with careful steps. Inside, I see Margaret already near the children's wing, a clipboard in her hand, her hair tied up, face bare and tired. Hope is seated beside her, reading. Faith is looking around curiously. Joy is curled up in a fleece blanket in a wheelchair, and when they see me, something shifts. Hope waves. You came, Joy smiles a sleepy smile, and Faith. Faith walks right over and says, I told them you would. I bend down to her level. Thank you for believing in me. She shrugs like it's no big deal. You look different today. I smile. That's because I brought the right shoes. Margaret joins us. She's ready for her therapy. It's physical rehab mostly, motor support, stamina work. I can help, I say. She hands me a folded sling. Then carry her after. She'll be too tired to walk back. So I do. Joy's arms go around my neck as I lift her. She's lighter than she should be. She smells like strawberries and crayons. And as I carry her down the corridor, past glass doors and beeping monitors, I feel something unfamiliar and achingly real take root in me. Love, yes. But also guilt. Because I wasn't here when she learned to walk, when she first said mama, when her legs first failed her. I wasn't here. But I am now. In the therapy room, I sit beside Margaret and watch Joy work with her therapist. It's not easy. Each stretch, each movement is deliberate and slow. Sweat beads on her forehead, but she doesn't complain. Not once. She's strong, I whisper. She has to be, Margaret replies. They all do. After the session, Joy barely speaks. Her head rests on my shoulder as I carry her back out. Faith holds the door open. Hope runs ahead to press the elevator button. They're a little army, each girl filling in the spaces the others can't. Back in the car, Margaret lets me ride with them. It's an immunodeficiency, she explains. They were born early, underdeveloped systems, a rare condition. We manage it with nutrition, sleep, therapies, a cocktail of medications. It's not terminal, but it's exhausting. Does it get worse? I ask, heart in my throat. Sometimes, she says quietly, especially when we don't have the money for what they need. That stings. I've spent money on Persian rugs, on monogrammed linens, on champagne. These girls needed none of that. They needed protein-rich food, reliable prescriptions, help. I want to cover everything, I say. Medical, school, clothing, anything they need.
Margaret doesn't answer right away. Why? She asks finally. Why now? I turn in my seat to face her. Because I made a mistake. A big one. I let my grief keep me away from my son. I let money become my language of love. And now I'm standing at the edge of a cliff, trying to find a way back to what matters. Margaret stares out the window, then nods. Okay. It's not a warm okay, not a grand gesture of forgiveness, but it's a beginning. That afternoon, I go back to their house and help Faith with her science homework. I sit on the floor beside Hope as she arranges sticker books. I help Joy get into her pajamas, tucking the blanket just the way she likes it. Then, Margaret hands me one of the DVDs from the box. Watch this, she says. It's marked, To the Girls, on their 8th birthday. I sit alone in the kitchen, insert the disc into the old DVD player, and press play. Michael appears on the screen. He's older than I remember. Tired, but smiling. Happy birthday, girls, he says. If you're watching this, that means I'm still being a big softie and couldn't resist leaving a message. He laughs. It's the same laugh from when he was 12 and beat me at chess for the first time. I want you to know how proud I am. Every day you amaze me. I know some days are harder than others, I know sometimes you feel different, but you are the bravest, brightest lights in my world." He pauses. Then, "And someday, when the time is right, you'll meet your grandma. She's strong, sometimes too strong, but she loves fiercely, like a lion. She doesn't always say the right thing. But if she's in your life, really in it, you'll never be alone." I can't breathe. "She might be watching this with you," he adds. "So if she is, hi, Mom." He waves. "I love you. I'm sorry I didn't say that more. But I did. Always. Even when I didn't show it. You were my lighthouse. And I hope you'll be theirs." The screen fades to black. I sit in silence, my hands trembling, my cheeks wet. He knew. He wanted this. And now, I want it too, more than anything. The next few days pass in a blur, half grief, half obsession. I stop going to luncheons. I cancel the interior design consult I had scheduled for the wine cellar. I ignore the email about renewing my seat on the hospital fundraising board. None of it matters anymore. I keep thinking about the way that little girl looked at me. Not with fear, not even with confusion. It was something deeper, familiarity. She knew who I was. But how? I returned to the cemetery again. Then again the day after that. Each morning, I bring fresh flowers. At first, it's for Michael. Then, if I'm honest, it's in case they come back. They don't. Not for 3 long days. On the 4th morning, I bring a thermos of tea and a blanket. I arrive before the gates open and wait in my car just beyond the wrought iron archway. I tell myself it's ridiculous what I'm doing, that I've gone from grieving mother to amateur detective with no real leads, no names, no facts, just a gut feeling and a glimpse of 3 girls in black dresses. But I don't leave, and that's the morning I see it again. The same blue sedan, faded paint, a missing hubcap, pulling quietly into the same far edge of the cemetery lot, half hidden under a cypress tree. My heart hammers. They're here. The girls pile out of the car. The woman I saw before, older, worn, leads them across the grass. They move with routine, like they've done this before. She stands a few paces away as the girls walk to Michael's grave and sit silently in a triangle. They each take something out of their pockets. One has a small rock, polished and painted. Another sets down a folded piece of paper. The third opens a tiny music box and lets it play just 3 soft notes before she closes it again. And then one of them, Braid Girl, says softly, "Hi, Daddy." I can't move. I can barely breathe, because there's no more doubt in my mind. These aren't family friends. These aren't charity cases. These are his daughters, my granddaughters. I step out of my car slowly, the blanket falling from my lap into the floorboard. My knees shake. My shoes crunch over the gravel as I approach the edge of the trees. I don't go all the way. I stop just close enough for them to hear if I speak. But before I can say a word, the older woman notices me. Her eyes widen. She rushes forward, panicked, scooping up the girls like a mother hen gathering her chicks. "Come on," she says, urgently but softly. "Back to the car, now." The girls don't resist. But one of them, Hope, I learn later, turns her head back as they walk away and stares at me. There is sadness in her eyes, but not fear. The sedan drives off before I can say anything. I sit down on the cemetery bench and tremble. Not from the cold, from the enormity of what I've just witnessed. Michael had children. 3. And he never told me? Why? That question eats at me all afternoon. The anger creeps in slowly, infecting the grief like mold creeping up a wall. He had no right to keep them from me. No right. I was his mother. I am their grandmother. I could have helped. I could have been there. How could he do this? But as soon as the fury flares, it dims again. Because I know that boy. I know my son. He was thoughtful, private, guarded. He must have had a reason. The next morning, I call an old friend of Michael's from the hospital, Dr. Rodriguez, an oncologist I'd met briefly during the memorial. He'd said Michael worked too hard, that he practically lived at the hospital. Did my son ever mention a woman named Margaret? I ask, trying to sound casual. There's a pause on the line. Yes, he says finally. Margaret Chen. She used to be a social worker. They were close. But then she left. Michael stopped talking about her. I grip the phone tighter. Do you know where she is now? Another pause. Mrs. Patterson, if this is about what I think it's about, maybe it's better. I just need an address. I interrupt. He sighs. I'll see what I can find. Hours later, I get a text. A street name, a house number, a part of town I've never had reason to visit. Not poor, not wealthy, just ordinary, unremarkable, unlike anything my son ever lived in. That evening, I drive there. The house is small, a bungalow with peeling paint and a slanted porch. There's a cracked tricycle in the yard, a toy dinosaur resting on the railing, wind chimes tapping in the breeze. And then the front door opens. She steps out. The woman from the cemetery. She sees me immediately and freezes. I walk to the foot of the steps, heart pounding, mouth dry. You're Margaret? I ask, though I already know the answer. She doesn't nod, doesn't move, just looks at me with a kind of quiet tension, like a guard dog assessing whether to bark or bite. I'm Michael's mother. Silence, and then, I know. That confirmation cracks something open inside me. I feel my hands shake, so I clutch the railing for stability. Those girls, they're his? She swallows. Her voice is almost a whisper. Yes. 3 letters, 1 word. It changes my entire 3 little girls, 1 big leap, and 2 women, both exhausted and brave in their own way, choosing to hope together. Tuesday arrives with the kind of dawn that feels unsure of itself. The sky hovers between gray and gold, like it's not ready to commit. I pull into the driveway 5 minutes early, a travel mug of black tea in one hand and an overnight bag in the back seat. Margaret warned me the day might run long. I'm not taking any chances. The girls are already on the porch when I step out of the car. Faith is wearing a baseball cap far too large for her head. Hope has her hair in twin braids, and Joy's in her wheelchair, tucked beneath a soft yellow blanket. You remembered no perfume, Margaret says as she steps out behind them. I read your list 3 times. Joy holds up a small handmade bracelet made of yarn. I made this for you, she says shyly. It's blue because Daddy said you liked the ocean. My hands shake a little as I tie it around my wrist. I do. I love it. Thank you. The hospital is 2 hours away. Margaret drives. I ride in the back with the girls, who chatter more now than they did last week. Hope wants to know how cars work. Faith quizzes me on state capitals. Joy falls asleep with her head on my lap before we reach the highway. It's not glamorous. It's not easy. But it feels right. At the hospital, the girls are taken in by a team of specialists. Nurses, pediatricians, and a warm-eyed physician named Dr. Chen. The moment he sees Margaret, he smiles with the familiarity of someone who's walked the same road with you more times than you can count. And you must be the infamous grandmother, he says, shaking my hand. I suppose I am. Michael spoke highly of you. My chest tightens. He did? Dr. Chen nods. Said you were complicated, like him, but fierce and loyal. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I do neither. I just nod. The appointments stretch across the morning. Physical assessments, blood work, an MRI for Joy, a long consultation about new medication options. I sit in each room, quiet but present, learning, watching. There's so much I didn't know. They've been fighting battles no one saw. Joy's immune system is the weakest. Hope's fatigue comes in waves and crashes. Faith pretends to be stronger than she is, holding things inside until she bursts. They compensate for each other, Margaret whispers, while Hope is being weighed. They're like puzzle pieces. They're extraordinary, I reply. At lunch, we eat in the hospital cafeteria. Chicken nuggets, applesauce, and coffee that tastes like melted cardboard. Faith offers me one of her tater tots. It's the least gross thing here, she says seriously. I feel honored. Joy picks the grapes out of her fruit cup and offers them to Hope, who hates melon. Hope slides her pudding over to Joy without a word. Margaret eats fast, distracted, eyes always moving. "Let me take a shift," I say. "You sit, really sit." She blinks at me. I don't think I remember how. I guide her into a chair. "Then start now." I take the girls outside to a small garden near the oncology wing. There's a tree with wind chimes and a pond with koi fish. They walk the stone path, slow and wobbly, but determined. Joy sits in her chair, watching the fish flash beneath the surface. "They look like they're dancing," she says. "They are," I reply. "It's called surviving." Faith climbs onto the stone bench beside me. "Do you miss him?" The question comes so suddenly, so simply, I nearly drop the cracker I'm holding. "Every minute," I say. "Me too," she whispers. We sit in silence. Later, Dr. Chen calls Margaret and me into a small office. "The trial's moving forward," he says. "We've got space for all 3 girls, starting next month." "Wait, all 3? Margaret asks. "We pushed some paperwork. They qualify as a trio under the protocol, given their condition and genetic links. It's rare, but they'll need to be close to the hospital for at least 6 months. Margaret stares. "We live 2 hours away." There's subsidized housing nearby for trial families. Not luxurious, but livable. Her mouth opens, then closes. I speak up. "I can rent an apartment, big enough for all of us." Margaret shakes her head. "That's not your responsibility." "It's not about responsibility. It's about doing what needs to be done." She looks tired, overwhelmed, but something in her eyes begins to thaw. Dr. Chen clears his throat gently. "I'll leave you to talk." When we're alone, Margaret says, "This is going to change everything." I hope so. Not just for them, for me, for you. You realize that, right? Yes. If we live together, share the work, it won't be easy. There'll be bad days, long nights. I've had both. I survived. Margaret stares at me. Then, slowly, she smiles. Michael would have liked this. The 2 women he loved most, finally on the same side. He would have had his hands full, she chuckles. He already did. We find the girls in the waiting room, watching cartoons. I kneel down in front of them. "So," I begin, "how do you girls feel about moving closer to the hospital for a while? There's a park nearby, and maybe a library, and I hear there's a bakery that sells pink cookies with sprinkles." Joy lights up. Hope nods enthusiastically. Faith narrows her eyes. "But what about school, and beds, and our books?" "We'll bring the important stuff," Margaret says, kneeling beside me. "We'll make a new routine." "But who's coming with us?" Hope asks. I reach out my hand. "If it's okay?" "I'd like to be there, every day." Joy slips her hand into mine. Hope does too. Then Faith. "Okay," Faith says, "but only if you read bedtime stories in silly voices." I can do that. And in that moment, for the first time in what feels like forever, the future doesn't look like a lonely road anymore. It looks like 3 little hands wrapped in mine, pulling me forward. We move in on a Thursday. The apartment is modest, just 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen that smells vaguely like old coffee, no matter how much we scrub. But it's close to the hospital, quiet and warm. Most importantly, it's ours now. Margaret takes the largest bedroom. The girls share one painted in soft lavender. I take the smallest, which has a window that faces east and lets the morning sun creep in across the bedspread. There's barely enough room for my suitcase and the wooden rocking chair I brought from home, the one I used to sit in when Michael was a baby. The girls settle quickly, like flowers bending toward a new sun. Faith tapes pictures on the wall, drawings of dragons, stars, and one that makes my throat tighten. A smiling man in a white coat standing next to 3 girls and a woman with gray hair. "That's you," she says. Hope arranges her books by color. "I like when they look like a rainbow," she explains, like that's the most obvious reason in the world. Joy chooses the bed closest to the window and insists on sleeping with all three of her stuffed animals. Because they get lonely without each other. The first week is a whirlwind of appointments, prescriptions, and adjustments. We spend long days at the hospital and longer evenings managing routines, vitamins, nebulizers, warm baths, bedtime stories, and endless laundry. It's exhausting. And beautiful. The first time I brush Hope's hair, she leans into my hand. "You don't tug," she says. "I had practice," I smile. "Your dad hated when I pulled too hard." She giggles. "He always said he didn't need hair if it meant avoiding brushes." At dinner, Joy asks if we can have pancakes for supper. I say yes without hesitation. Faith makes a face. "Breakfast at night is weird," I reply. "Being a grandma means I get to make weird decisions." Margaret raises an eyebrow, but says nothing. Later, she thanks me while folding towels. "You're doing okay," she says. "They trust you. I'm still earning it." "They're already calling you grandma in their sleep. That's not something you earn. That's something they give." It's the highest praise I've received in years. On Sundays, we take walks in the nearby park. Joy rides in her chair, shouting directions like a pirate captain. "Starboard, Grandma! That means right!" Hope collects leaves and presses them in her sketchbook. Faith practices cartwheels until she collapses into the grass, breathless and proud. One afternoon, we picnic beneath a tree. Margaret watches from the bench as I attempt to wrangle jelly sandwiches and juice boxes. "You're a natural," she says, half smiling. I glance over at her. I'm just finally trying. She nods. Trying matters. There are hard days, too. One night, Joy wakes screaming with a fever. Her skin is hot and dry, her breathing ragged. Margaret moves fast, already packing a bag before I even finish calling the hospital. We spend the night in the ER, trading off between pacing and comforting, waiting for labs and IVs to catch up with the chaos inside her small body. When it's all over, Joy sleeps in Margaret's arms, and I sit in the corner with tears silently sliding down my cheeks. I feel useless, overwhelmed, afraid. Margaret looks at me. "This is what it's like," she says. "The fear never leaves, but neither does the love." That night, when we return home, the house feels heavier, quieter. But in the morning, Joy wakes up and asks for applesauce. And just like that, we begin again. I start cooking more. Not just meals, comfort. Chicken noodle soup when someone's sad. Banana muffins for Mondays. Toast with honey before doctor visits. Faith helps me in the kitchen. One evening, while stirring batter, she asks, "Did Daddy like to bake?" I laugh. He once burned microwave popcorn. She giggles. Figures. But then her voice lowers. "Do you think he'd be happy we're here, like this?" I stop stirring. "Yes, I think he'd be relieved. You're loved, and safe, and together." She nods, eyes wide. "I miss him every night." "I know, sweetheart. Me too." We create rituals. Margaret reads bedtime stories on Fridays. I do the voices on Tuesdays. We all have hot chocolate on Saturdays, even if it's warm outside. Joy insists on dancing after her breathing treatments. Hope teaches me how to play a card game I've never heard of. Faith starts writing a story, asking for help with character names. I become part of the rhythm, the mess, the laughter. I learn that Hope bites her lip when she's concentrating, that Faith chews on pencils, that Joy has a talent for remembering lyrics after just one listen. I learn their fears too. Hope is scared of hospitals, even though she spends most of her time in one. Faith gets quiet when someone raises their voice. Joy clings to her rabbit whenever there's thunder. And slowly, they learn me. That I hum when I'm cooking. That I fall asleep with a book on my chest. That I cry sometimes in the laundry room when no one's looking.
It begins with a box. Not one of the brown cardboard ones I've used to carry books or groceries, but something far more delicate. A small wooden box, hand-carved with a faded red ribbon wrapped around it. Hope finds it in the back of Margaret's hallway closet while searching for extra art supplies. "What's this?" she asks, setting it on the floor. Margaret's face pales when she sees it. She walks over slowly, brushing her hand across the surface as though checking to see if it's real. I forgot this was still here. I crouch beside her. What is it? Michael's, she says. He gave it to me years ago. Told me not to open it unless something happened to him. The room goes still. Margaret lifts the lid. Inside are several DVDs, each labeled in Michael's neat handwriting, one for each of the girls, one marked Margaret, one with my name, Mom. My breath catches. We wait until the girls are asleep to watch them. Margaret tucks the others away and gently places my disc into the old player in the living room. We sit side by side on the couch, the soft hum of the machine spinning up louder than expected in the quiet night. The screen flickers. Michael appears, seated in what looks like a hospital break room. His scrubs are wrinkled, his hair longer than I remember. He looks exhausted, but calm. Hi, Mom. The moment he speaks, my heart shatters. I don't know when you'll see this, hopefully never. But if you are, then I guess life didn't go quite as planned. He chuckles softly. There's a sadness behind his smile that wasn't there when he was a boy. I wanted to explain, about the girls, about everything. I lean forward, my fingers gripping the edge of the couch. When Emily died, I thought I'd figure it out, be a single dad, do it all. But I was drowning. Every time I looked at them, I saw joy and fear and responsibility all tangled together, and I was terrified I'd mess it up. He pauses. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to bring you into the chaos. I told myself you'd moved on, that maybe you didn't want more noise, more pain. But that was just me avoiding hard truths. I press my hand to my mouth. I was wrong to keep them from you. They deserved a grandmother. You deserved them. Tears stream down my face. And now, if you're here, then I'm asking you to do what I didn't have the courage to. Love them, be there, show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He looks straight at the camera, and for a moment, I feel like he's staring into my soul. You're the strongest person I know. You carried me. Now, I need you to carry them. The screen fades to black. Margaret doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to. I get up, walk down the hallway, and peek into the girls' room. Faith's arm is flung over Hope's chest. Joy is curled into a ball, her rabbit tucked beneath her chin. I kneel beside their beds. I'm here, I whisper. I'm not going anywhere. The next day, we watch the other videos. The girls huddle together on the couch as Michael's face lights up the screen. He tells Faith how smart she is, how her curiosity will change the world. He tells Hope her heart is her superpower. That kindness will always win. He tells Joy that her laughter was his favorite sound in the universe. Each video ends the same way. Be good for Aunt Margaret, and if you meet Grandma Marlene, tell her I said hi, and that I miss her. The girls look at me after each one, their eyes wide and wet. I open my arms, and they fall into me like waves into shore. That night, as I tuck them in, Joy whispers, "Do you think he can see us?" "Yes," I say. "I think he's right here." And for the first time, none of them ask me to leave the room after lights out. Instead, Faith says, "Can you tell us one of his stories?" "Like what?" "Something from when he was little." I think for a moment, then smile. Once, when he was 9, he tried to build a rocket out of soda cans and aluminum foil. They giggle before I even get to the punchline. I tell them about his imaginary dinosaur friend, about how he once cried over a baby bird that fell from a tree, about the time he stole a slice of cake before dinner and blamed it on the dog. Their laughter warms the room, and something shifts inside me. Because I'm no longer just remembering him. I'm sharing him. He's alive in these memories, in these giggles, in the way Joy clutches her blanket, in how Faith raises one eyebrow exactly like he used to when she doesn't believe you. I am not just a grandmother now. I'm a storyteller, a bridge between the man he became and the girls he left behind. And every night, I build that bridge a little stronger, one story at a time.
It happens on a Wednesday. The kind of Wednesday where nothing extraordinary is supposed to happen. Overcast skies, cold oatmeal, and a laundry machine that refuses to spin properly. I'm on the floor in the living room, sorting socks into uneven piles, when Joy pads over in her fuzzy slippers and plants herself beside me. She doesn't say a word at first, just watches as I try to match tiny pastel pairs, each sock with a smiling animal face on the toes. Then, casually, as though it were the most normal thing in the world, she says, "Grandma, do all hedgehogs have names?" My brain stutters, not because of the question, but because of the word before it. Grandma. I don't correct her. I don't blink. I just keep folding, trying to steady the sudden, wild beating of my heart. I think most do, I say finally, especially the really prickly ones. She nods. Mine's name is Biscuit. Biscuit the hedgehog. That's very official. Joy presses the stuffed toy to her cheek. He said it's okay if you're my grandma now. I freeze. She's still looking at the socks, completely unaware that she's just given me the greatest gift I've ever received. I reach out, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. Then Biscuit and I are in agreement. That afternoon, Hope writes Grandma on a card she's making at the kitchen table. It's covered in crayon hearts and a flower that looks suspiciously like a sun. When she hands it to me, she says, "Daddy said names are special, and I think this one fits you." By the time Faith joins in, calling out, "Grandma, we're out of cereal!" From the hallway, like it's the most natural thing in the world, I feel something deep in me settle, like a final puzzle piece sliding into place. It's not about genetics, or legality, or paperwork. It's about presence. And for the first time in years, I'm present. In everything. We start new traditions. Taco Tuesdays become a thing. Not fancy tacos, just ones made with soft shells and too much cheese. The girls argue over whose turn it is to set the table. Faith insists the spoons be perfectly aligned. Hope wants to light the scented candle that smells like cinnamon rolls. Joy likes to announce the menu like a TV show host. Tonight's special, ladies and gentlemen, meat with stuff in it. Every night, I read them to sleep. Not just fairy tales anymore, books about science, far-off planets, magical forests. Stories with smart girls who lead adventures, solve mysteries, and heal things that seem broken. Sometimes they ask me questions I'm not ready for. Why did Daddy have to die? Will we get better forever? Do you think Mommy is in heaven too? I never lie, but I never let the sadness be the end of the answer. Instead, I offer them what Michael would have wanted them to have: hope, and stories that make the pain easier to carry. One night, while brushing Faith's hair, I say, "Do you know what I used to call your dad?" She shakes her head. "My sunshine boy." He hated it, especially in front of his friends. She snorts. "I would have too." I grin. I told him that no matter how dark things got, he always lit up the room. Faith is quiet for a moment. Then she says, "That's what you do now." I pause mid-brush. "What?" "You make the dark feel less scary." I can't speak. I just wrap my arms around her and hold on. Margaret sees it too. One morning over coffee, she says, "They lean on you now." Not because they have to, because they want to. I sip slowly, letting her words sink in. "You're good at this," she continues. "And I'll admit, I didn't think you would be." "I didn't either," I say honestly. She nods, eyes tired but warm. "But you are." There's something between us now. Mutual trust, hard-earned and real. We're no longer two women standing on opposite sides of grief. We're co-parents, partners, allies in the fight for a better tomorrow for three little girls who still believe in magic and who, despite everything, have never stopped smiling. That afternoon, I take the girls to a bookstore. I give each of them a small allowance and tell them to choose any book they want. Faith picks a journal, blank pages waiting for her story. Hope chooses a book on constellations. I want to find the stars Daddy talked about. Joy selects a book about baking, already dreaming of flour-covered hands and messy counters. And as we check out, the cashier smiles at us. "Are you their mom?" she asks. I hesitate. The girls look up at me. "No," I say, then pause. "I'm their grandmother." Joy pipes up proudly. "She's our grandma." The real kind, with soup and stories and everything. The cashier laughs. "Well, lucky girls." I smile, holding their hands. I'm the lucky one. 3 little girls, 1 big leap, and 2 women, both exhausted and brave in their own way, choosing to hope, together. By the 3rd month, we know each other's rhythms so well, it feels like we've always been this way. Like I've always had 3 little pairs of footsteps echoing behind me, always had someone asking for a snack or a story or a hug in the middle of folding laundry. But life isn't a picture book. Joy has a bad week. It starts with a cough, then the fatigue, then the fever that won't budge. We rush her to the hospital on a Tuesday night, Margaret driving like a storm chaser, me in the back seat cradling Joy against my chest as she wheezes softly, rabbit clutched in one limp hand. The ER is bright, cold, and too familiar. She's admitted within minutes. Faith and Hope are left at home with a neighbor, Mrs. Finley, who knows our names now, who keeps extra apple juice in the fridge just in case. Margaret and I sit by Joy's bedside all night, taking turns with the IV monitor's soft beeping. I read aloud from her baking book, voice cracking, trying to keep the words steady. She wanted to bake the perfect muffin. Joy's eyes flutter open every so often, glassy and dazed. "Is it Tuesday?" she whispers. "It's Wednesday, honey." Then we missed pancakes. "We'll do a pancake party when you're home, okay?" She nods and drifts back into sleep. In the quiet moments between nurse visits and medication changes, Margaret and I talk. Not the surface-level exchanges of the early weeks. Real things. She tells me about her sister, Emily, how she was wild and tender, how she didn't get a chance to know motherhood fully before it was taken from her, how Michael tried to be both mother and father, and how he almost broke under it. "You think you know your limits," she says, "then life pushes you harder. But sometimes it's in the pushing that you find out you're stronger than you ever believed." I nod. I never knew I was lonely until they made me whole. Joy recovers slowly. When we bring her home, Faith has decorated the living room with paper hearts and sticky notes that say things like, "Welcome back, Jellybean," and "We missed your giggle." Hope has made a get-well smoothie that is, unfortunately, green and unidentifiable. Joy beams. It tastes like spinach and crayons. She drinks it anyway. As the weeks pass, Margaret and I begin talking about the future more seriously. The trial is nearing its final phase. The girls have done better than anyone hoped. Energy levels are higher. Symptoms are milder. They're thriving. We sit down with Dr. Chen. "We'll want to continue with maintenance care," he says. "Nothing invasive, just steady support. But the worst? We think it's behind them." I blink back tears. "So they'll be okay?" "With care and vigilance, yes. But they'll need both of you." We look at each other. We already knew that. Margaret applies for a job at the hospital, a part-time position with the patient advocacy team. She has the experience, and she understands the system better than anyone. When she gets it, the girls draw a picture of her in a superhero cape. "She saves people from paperwork monsters," Faith explains. "I do," Margaret agrees solemnly. "And I?" I decide not to go back to my old house. I sell it. It was beautiful, expensive, empty. It served a version of me I no longer recognize. Instead, I help Margaret find us a small rental home closer to the hospital. It's not fancy, but it has a little backyard, creaky floors, and space for 4 people and a hedgehog named Biscuit. I turn one corner of the living room into a reading nook. The rocking chair goes there. So does Michael's old bookshelf. I frame a photo of him holding the girls, and I hang it on the wall beside a finger painting Joy made of a cat that looks suspiciously like a potato. We are a family now, not just by blood, by choice. One evening, I walk into the girls' room as they prepare for bed. Faith is brushing her teeth with exaggerated flair. Hope is choosing pajamas like she's preparing for a fashion show. Joy is sitting cross-legged on the bed, flipping through her baking book again. "Grandma," she says, without looking up, "can we make banana bread tomorrow?" "Of course." "With chocolate chips?" "Only if you promise not to eat the batter this time." She grins. "No promises." As I turn to leave, she adds softly, "You're really staying forever, aren't you?" I stop in the doorway. I walk back over, kneel beside her bed, and take her small hand in mine. "Yes," I say, "forever sounds just about right." And I mean it. For all the years I let slip by, for all the memories I missed, I'm here now. Not because I have to be, because I want to be, because Michael asked me to, because 3 little girls rewrote the ending I thought was already written. Spring arrives slowly, like someone creeping back into a room they once stormed out of. The trees along our street bloom timidly, unsure if the frost is really gone. The girls start leaving their jackets on the backs of chairs, forgetting that mornings still bite a little. Margaret starts packing yogurt and fruit in their lunches instead of soup. I plant lavender in pots by the front door and find a piece in my hands being dirty that I never expected. We've lived in the new house for a little over a month now, and every corner of it hums with life. Socks appear in impossible places. Glitter trails across the bathroom floor. A dent in the hallway wall becomes a story. Hope trying to carry a cardboard rocket ship and crashing into the corner. I don't mind the mess. Not anymore. Because every spilled cup and misplaced shoe is proof that this house is alive. That we're not just surviving. We're growing. Faith starts keeping a journal. She doesn't tell anyone, but I see her writing late at night, flashlight under the blanket, tongue peeking out in concentration. One morning, she forgets it on the kitchen table. I don't open it. I wouldn't. But I do see the title scrawled in big purple letters on the front. Things I want to remember forever. The girls are blossoming, each in their own way. Hope has joined the school's science club. She brings home seedling kits and solar panel toys, and once tried to power the nightlight in their room with an old calculator battery. Joy has become the neighborhood's unofficial baker-in-chief. She makes muffins that fall apart and cookies that are half sugar, half flour. But she insists on delivering them door to door with a hand-drawn menu and a sticker for customer loyalty. Faith wants to be a writer. Or a dragon trainer, she says very seriously. Whichever comes first. Margaret laughs more now. I catch her dancing while vacuuming or humming while reading the mail. She's still tired. There's always something to do. But the weight on her shoulders seems lighter, like she knows she's no longer carrying it alone. As for me, I feel younger. Not physically, of course. My knees still protest stairs. But inside, I catch myself daydreaming again. I've started reading books with dog-eared pages, baking things without recipes, singing to the radio when I clean. And I've stopped checking my bank balance every morning. For years, money was my measure of success, of stability, of control. Now, it's just a tool. Something to make life better, not something to define it. One evening, the power flickers during a storm. The lights go out. The wind howls outside. There's a beat of silence. Then, a shriek from Joy's room. I rush in to find all 3 girls huddled under the blanket fort they built last week. Faith is clutching a flashlight. Hope is holding a book. Joy's eyes are wide. "We're scared," she says. "Of the dark?" I ask. She shakes her head. "Of losing this." My heart drops. Hope chimes in. "What if it goes away, like before, like Daddy? What if one day we wake up and you're gone?" I sit down on the floor, the wood cool under my knees. I take all 3 of their hands. "You won't lose this," I say. "Not if I can help it. Not if the sky falls down or the house floats away." Faith whispers, "But it did before." I nod. "I know, and I can't promise bad things won't happen, but I can promise that no matter what comes, I'm yours. Completely. Always." There's a silence, the kind that holds 100 thoughts in a single heartbeat. Then Hope says, Even if we're messy, especially then. Even if we fight, every family fights. Even if we're sick again, I squeeze their hands. I'll carry you through it. The lights flicker back on, but they don't move. They just stay wrapped around me, like a vine finding its way back to a tree it forgot it belonged to. The next day, we start a new ritual. Every night before bed, we go around the room and say one thing we're grateful for. Some nights, it's silly. I'm grateful for pudding. I'm grateful Faith didn't borrow my socks. I'm grateful Biscuit didn't poop in the closet. Other nights, it cuts deeper. I'm grateful Daddy told us about you. I'm grateful I'm not afraid of hospitals anymore. I'm grateful you didn't give up when you didn't know us yet. My answer is always the same. I'm grateful for you. And every time I say it, I mean it more than the night before. Because what we've built here isn't perfect. It's not made of fairy tales or magic. It's made of patched-up routines, quiet resilience, loud laughter, soft tears, burnt muffins, doctor visits, and storybooks read under blankets. It's real, and it's ours. It's a Saturday morning, warm and gold and impossibly still. The kind of morning that makes you believe everything might just be okay. The kitchen smells like cinnamon and orange peel. Joy is sitting on the counter, stirring batter like a tiny chef, her nose dusted in flour. Faith is at the table, arms wrapped around a fat fantasy novel she insists she'll finish today. Hope is outside, barefoot in the yard, building something out of sticks and tape. A solar oven, she calls it, proudly. Margaret leans against the doorframe, sipping coffee. Her hair is loose. There are lines under her eyes, but her smile is steady. This feels dangerous, she says. I look up from peeling apples. Dangerous? Like tempting fate, like it's too good. I understand what she means. After so much pain, so much holding your breath, joy feels risky. But I shake my head. This is what we survived for. She nods slowly. Still feels fragile. It is, I say. But so is everything worth loving. That afternoon, we go to the park. The girls run wild. They know this stretch of grass and trees like it's part of them. I watch Joy try to climb a tree. Not far, just enough to feel tall. Hope makes flower crowns and carefully puts one on Faith's head, who pretends to hate it but doesn't take it off. Margaret and I sit on the bench under the old elm. You know, she says, I used to think of you as someone outside our story, the one who left it behind. I say nothing. I've heard this truth before, from Michael's eyes, from the silence I lived in after his funeral. But now I see. Maybe you were always meant to be the ending we didn't know we needed. The words take my breath. I look at her. You think we're at the end? She laughs softly. Maybe not. Maybe this is the middle, or the part just before everything changes again. And it does change. A letter arrives. Michael's will, the formal one. I open it carefully, seated alone in my room. Most of it is standard. Medical directives, legal phrasing. But near the end, there's a note. One I hadn't seen before. To my mother. If you're reading this, then I didn't tell you what I should have while I had the chance. I was scared of how much I needed you, and even more scared that I didn't know how to need you anymore. But I never stopped loving you. Not even for a second. If the girls find you, if they reach you, let them in. And let them love you the way I couldn't say out loud. I close the file. I sit in silence for a long time. Then I go to the girls' room and just sit on the rug while they play. I don't say anything. I don't have to. Faith glances up, sees the look in my eyes, and simply reaches out a hand. I take it. Joy crawls into my lap. Hope looks up from her book. Are you okay? I am, I whisper, because you're here. Later, we go through Michael's old storage box, the one Margaret had kept sealed for years. Inside, we find a tiny pair of booties from when the girls were newborns, a baby blanket with their names embroidered in mismatched thread, a folder of sketches, dragons, castles, little girls in superhero capes, a photograph of him holding the triplets in the hospital, eyes red but smiling. And a letter addressed to the girls, when you're ready. We don't open it, not yet. We decide together that it's for them. When they're older, when they need it most. For now, they have us. They have today. And sometimes, that's enough. We start making Sunday dinners a thing. Hope sets the table with napkins folded like swans. Faith picks a quote of the week to read before we eat. Last week it was, "Even the smallest light can brighten the darkest cave." Joy makes the dessert, which is always more sugar than substance. We invite neighbors, friends from the hospital, teachers. Margaret roasts chicken. I make mashed potatoes. The house buzzes with voices and laughter and stories told between bites. And every week, someone inevitably asks, "How long have you all been together?" The girls always answer first. Forever. No one corrects them. One night, while tucking the girls into bed, I sit on the edge of Joy's blanket and ask, "Do you remember when we first met?" She nods. "At the cemetery." I inhale gently. "Yes, that was a hard day." She smiles. "But now we have soft ones too." Faith looks up. "Do you think Daddy knows?" I don't hesitate. "Yes, I think he knew this would happen, that we'd find each other." Hope adds, "Even if we didn't expect it?" Especially then. We sit in the glow of the nightlight, the shadows long and soft on the walls. Joy rests her head against my side. "You make the world feel like a blanket." I blink back tears. "You girls make me feel like I'm finally awake." Because I am. I'm more alive now than I've ever been. And it's because they said one word I never knew I needed so badly to hear. Grandma. It's been a year. A full cycle of seasons since the funeral. Since I stood in a black dress, hearing 3 small voices whisper, "Bye, Daddy," beneath an oak tree. Since grief cracked open something inside me I never thought I'd feel again. Love. Raw and unfiltered. Loud, chaotic, grounding. Now I wake to the sounds of life. Feet racing in the hallway. The soft bicker of toothbrush rotations. A kettle hissing on the stove. Joy's sleepy giggle. Hope's questions about the sky. Faith's constant humming, always thinking. Every corner of this house remembers us now. There are handprints on the walls, drawings taped to the fridge, stickers on my bedroom mirror, and one very questionable art installation involving googly eyes on all the light switches. Even the silence has changed. It's no longer hollow. It's full of presence. If I sit quietly, I can hear the echo of yesterday's stories. The weight of time spent well. We still have hospital visits, medications, days when Joy doesn't get out of bed, when Hope's energy fades, when Faith hides her worry behind books. But we also have dance parties in the kitchen, homemade birthday crowns, and bedtime stories read 3 times over, because the dragon part is the best. We have each other, and it's enough. Tonight, we sit in the backyard under a string of old garden lights. The girls are sprawled out on blankets, faces tilted toward the stars. Margaret is beside me in a lawn chair, wrapped in a shawl, warm tea cupped in her hands. Faith points up. "That one's Orion." Hope adds, "And that's Cassiopeia." I like her name. Joy curls into my side. "I think Daddy's up there. He watches us when it's really quiet." "I think he's here too," I whisper. "Every time you laugh, every time you grow." They don't answer. They don't need to. Margaret turns to me. "You know, I think you saved us." I smile. I think we saved each other." She nods, eyes shining. "Still, you gave us back something we lost." "Family?" "Yes, and something else too." She pauses. "Safety, stability, softness." The fireflies blink between the bushes. The girls begin to hum. Something they made up, I think. It's off-key and beautiful. A lullaby built from shared nights and whispered promises. Faith asks suddenly, "Do you remember what you said the first night we called you Grandma?" I smile. "I said, 'If you'll have me.'" "And we did," Joy says sleepily. Hope murmurs, "And we always will." Later, after the girls are tucked in, Margaret and I sit in the quiet living room. The house is dim, lit only by the soft glow of the hallway nightlight and the flicker of candles on the windowsill. She leans her head back and exhales. I used to count the hard days. I nod. Me too. And now? She asks. Now I count the moments I don't want to end. She smiles. Me too. I walk the hallway one last time tonight, as I always do. Joy sleeps curled into her blanket like a cocoon. Her rabbit is tucked in beside her, facing the ceiling. Hope's book is on her chest, her hand resting on a page she'll probably forget she stopped at. Faith's pencil is still in her hand, journal half written beneath her pillow. I kiss each of them gently, careful not to wake them. And then, I do something I haven't done in years. I whisper, "Good night, my loves." And they don't answer, not with words, but in their breath, their quiet, their peaceful sleep. I hear everything. I hear belonging. I hear healing. I hear the ending of a story I never expected to write, and the beginning of the life I never dared to dream of. Because I had millions in the bank, but no one to call me mom. Until that morning at the cemetery. Now I have everything that matters, and I am home. Now that our story is ending, I invite you, who sat quietly and listened, to take a moment. Maybe you've loved and lost. Maybe you've felt alone in a full room. Maybe your story has an ending you didn't choose, but somewhere, in the quiet, there is light. A second chance. A soft voice calling you into something beautiful. Listen for it. And if you ever doubt it, just remember, sometimes the love we were meant for finds us when we're not even looking, even in a cemetery, even in silence, even in goodbye. Especially then.